energy is very promising, but there are a lot of competing technologies, different biofuels, solar, wind,
ethanol. You did an article about
ethanol. Yeah, ethanol.
Talk about the history of that and what it's done.
Well, the history of ethanol is, during the energy crisis of the late 70s, we decided, we should make more of our own fuel, so we put some subsidies, some tax breaks in place to encourage use of ethanol.
An alcohol that goes into gasoline.
Alcohol made from corn, mixed with gasoline, primarily 10% ethanol, 90% gasoline. So that's we've over the last couple of years we've put a mandate in place that says that it sets targets or requirements year by year for how much ethanol we have to use. So we've made this a key part of our national energy policy. But we also have this 30-year-old tax credit in place that's sort of subsidizing these plants, and it's has made us overly dependent, I think, on a mature technology that should be able to stand on its own.
Mm-hmm. There's a research organization, I don't know if you're familiar with it, that does ethanol research at the SIU campus.
Yeah.
They do some really good work there.
Now, I would say, government's role is to foster basic research. That's kind of a public good, right? If you make a discovery that can benefit all of mankind, that's something that might not get enough funding from the private sector if no one company can really see a way yet to make a profit off of it. That's we do that with the NIH for drug development. It's been very successful. I think that's an appropriate role for government, but continuing to have a tax subsidy really for a mature industry that's also got plenty of other supports from the government, not really necessary.
What other industries do you see that have matured and no longer need the kind of babysitting that they get from the government?
Well, you want to talk about the auto bailout?
Yes, I do. Go ahead.
We've sunk a lot of money into that. Housing.
$50 billion to GM alone, right?
Yeah,
and
I believe that's
how
right.
many jobs did they create for $50 billion?
Well, they didn't create any. They did save, several thousand jobs.
Several thousand jobs for $50 billion.
I don't recall the number, but they at least some of those jobs would have gone away if GM had been allowed to go bankrupt without government support.
What do you think would have happened had GM and Chrysler simply followed the economic path that they were on, and that the government hadn't suddenly given them an infusion of cash?
Well, they did go into bankruptcy. They would have gone into a bankruptcy that, given the financial conditions at the time, might have turned into a liquidation. They would have sold all of GM's assets for kind of a fraction of the price. The bondholders would have divided up the money. And the same with Chrysler. Perhaps someone, Ford, Nissan, somebody might have decided that, hey, some of these product lines, Jeep or Buick or Cadillac, are worth buying, and we'll buy that product line and a certain number of the plants and start them back up. It would have been messy, certainly,
but they would have bought those assets like for pennies on the dollar,
right?
For
a song,
and therefore, when it started back up, their costs would have actually been a whole lot less, wouldn't they?
Right.
It's kind of like going to one of these stores where you're buying stuff, no more than $1.
And they might not have employed the same workers, the members of the UAW specifically, which was obviously very important to some people in the political system. I think that's why we had the bailout.
You think that's part of it? So, all right. So we've got money pouring into the auto industry, and hopefully
still a lot into housing. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae continually need infusions of cash.
Why do we? I mean, let's be rational here. Why is it that we're even putting a dime into the housing industry or construction of public money?
Right. Well, that's the shame of the recent financial reform bill is we didn't do anything to attack the problems with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I mean, that's the 800-ton gorilla in the room as far as the financial system, and having a large, unsound organization currently under the wing of the government, but still with a stock that's publicly traded. They're still theoretically private companies, and it looks like a bottomless pit at this point. We need to we need to come up with a strategy to get the housing market back on a non-subsidized basis.
Mm-hmm. For those who have been living in a cave for the last number of months, the U.S. government has recently passed a law which they call FinReg, which is actually financial regulations. They've changed the rules
on the banks.
Talk a little bit about what it was they were trying to accomplish, and what you thought was good, and what you think might not be so good about what they've in this law.
Well, it's a very extensive law, over 2,000 pages. It does a lot. There's certain things that people would have liked to have seen that didn't get done, such as there's very little in there that attacks the problem of banks being too big to fail. There is a resolution procedure which theoretically would allow one of those large banks to fail, but it's very theoretical and untested.
Is this because they're trying to protect their brethren who are, who have invested money? Is that the whole deal here?
I don't.
They're just working with each other to make sure that nobody has.
No,
to move out
I
of
really
their house?
don't think that's. I'm not that cynical. I don't think that's the. I think the motivation is we are, as we were in 2008 when it looks like the whole system's about to come down. One of the failure of one of these large financial institutions has ramifications for everybody in the economy. If credit dries up, then jobs go away. We learned that after Lehman Brothers failed, and no one wants to see that happen again. So I think there is a genuine concern, but also just a bit of puzzlement. No one has quite figured out what to do with these large banks. So we kind of punted on that one. There are, the law will make it a little bit more difficult at the margin for these banks to take risks with their assets. They'll have to put more capital behind certain activities. It's a new consumer financial regulatory agency was created, which has a lot of rulemaking to do, but it's going to, for the first time, or in the strongest fashion we've ever had, it's going to prevent the creation of some of these subprime products and the way they were marketed that got people into trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never could understand how people, if they had even a modicum of education, could allow themselves to get into some of these nothing down, interest only kind of loans. They must, if they had any education at all, would have understood that this was going to lead to disaster.
Well, you had two kinds of situations. I mean, there was one group that did understand the risk, at least at a high level, and were getting in there because they were caught up in the mania that hey, I can flip this house, or prices are always going to go up, so I can refinance it. They understood that they were getting in over their heads, but they thought there wouldn't be any consequences.
They thought they were going, like in musical chairs, they thought they were going to get another chair.
Exactly. And but there was another group, I think fairly small as a percentage of the whole housing market. I've not really seen a good number put on it, but there were some low-income people who were, in some cases owned their house free and clear. They a fast-talking mortgage salesman talked them into refinancing their house to fix the roof or something, and they ended up saddled with all kinds of debt that caused them to lose their house. There are some victims out there who were went into it naively, but there are also some, schemers who went into it with, with a profit motive.
And then we got about 3-4 minutes left
okay.
here. Is there something we haven't covered that you would like to talk about? Perhaps something that you're working on now?
Well, we could talk about the job market and the unemployment rate being close to 10%, 9.5, I believe, was the latest rating. It's going to come down slowly. That's the short term. No matter how much we think, we talk about the long-term investments we should make, educating the workforce and so on. The fact is there just aren't enough jobs out there right now for everybody who wants one. It's just part of this adjustment that we're going through from an economy that basically binged on debt and overproduced housing and a lot of other things, and we're having to step back from that, readjust. Companies are very uncertain of the outlook right now, so they're reluctant to hire.
It's interesting. I mean, I heard a report on NPR not that long ago that said that companies are reluctant to hire, but they're not reluctant to have their people work more and pay them more, rather than bringing on new employees. So the 90% who are working are, in many respects, doing quite nicely. Thank you.
Yeah,
and that's why there's so much spending going on.
But that's how recoveries happen. I mean, eventually, if those people start spending enough, the demand for goods and services goes up. The company eventually gets to the point where, hey, we can't work these people any higher, and our profits are good, and we think we can make even more money next year if we hire 5 more people. That's how it happens. It's just taking a very long time, this cycle, because the excesses were so large. The adjustment is so large. I mean, look at the construction industry, the people who are working building houses. That was a large part of the economy for most of the last decade. The vast majority of those workers are on layoff right now, or
doing side jobs,
trying to retrain to learn to do something else.
I know a guy who lives in my neighborhood who used to run a crew, and I mean, he basically had his own business, but he would run as a sub for these large developers, and now he just does side jobs as best he can. We got about like 30 seconds here. You said till they hire more. Well, I think the healthcare, and just in a few sentences, healthcare is going to prevent employers from hiring a few people, aren't they? Because it's going to cost them.
It is, because the cost, they know the cost is going to go up. They've got this mandate now that employers over 50 people, I think, have to provide health insurance or pay a fine to the federal government. So they know their costs are going up. They're not quite sure until perhaps this fall. They're not quite sure how much they're going to go up, but they think it's going to be big.
Right. I wish we had more time to talk about it. That's a very important subject. We'll have to have you back.
Okay.
I've been, well, gosh, I wish we had more time here to talk. I've got to just say goodbye to you all. We'll see you next Monday. Thank you very much.